Hello and welcome to your Tuesday edition of the State of Scottish Football with myself, Colin Byers, thrust into the hosting chair once again and joined by my good friend Robbie, the gruesome twosome are back again.
I know, good to be back along with you again, Colin. Hopefully
It,
some good chat again.
it should be. How are you this festive season? It's vastly approaching.
Yeah, I'm doing very well. I'm kind of pleased that my Christmas party on Friday is still going ahead after today's announcement. But yeah, looking forward to Christmas and looking forward to the festive football fixtures because, as we know, there's a lot between now and the new year.
Yeah, there's always that the joy of the football this time of the year. But we've got lots to discuss, as you would expect in Scottish football. Never a quiet day north of the border. But we're going to start with what seems to be almost sort of breaking news. Hibs maybe looks as though they've got their man. It seems to be all but confirmed. Shaun Maloney is the man who's going to take them forward. Bit of a left field appointment, do you think, Robbie?
Yeah, I spoke about this on the show on Thursday about Hibs maybe going for that left field appointment. But Shaun Maloney was one that I thought they'd target, but I wasn't sure if now was the time that he'd maybe look to go into management on his own. So for that to emerge this afternoon, that it's looking like he could be the main contender to replace Jack Ross and could be appointed by Friday, I think it'd be an exciting move for Hibs fans to have someone of that calibre who, yeah, he's maybe not been tested in first team management, but learning alongside Roberto Martinez and I guess coaching some of the best players in the world can only be a positive thing for Hibs. And I guess he's going to be assisted by Gary Caldwell as well. So I think that he'd know Scottish football very well as well and got his coaching badges. I think it speak about this a lot with guys like Ange Postecoglou coming to Scottish football. I think someone like Shaun Maloney from the Belgium national team to Hibs, I think that's a good move as well, just for Scottish football as a whole. What do you think?
He's obviously feels it's the right time for him to go for it. As you said, with the experience of working under Martinez at Belgium, and obviously he feels now is the right time. Is it the right time for him? Is it the right club?
It's one of those because you could think in a way is like Hibs. I've said this for a while. I think Hibs' squad, yeah, folk can say they didn't recruit. Jack Ross didn't recruit that well in the summer, but I think on paper Hibs' squad's massively underachieving. So, would you want to go into a squad like that halfway through the season? I'm not sure, but at least it's so close to the transfer window. Maloney can maybe get in if he does come in on Friday. He's got a few games. We'll have a cup final very shortly coming up, and it's one of these things that he'll probably just be excited to get going. And you could say any time's a good time, a bad time for the manager to come in, and it's one of those that you don't know. It's a tough one because I remember hearing Celtic fans when Lennon left, looking at guys like Shaun Maloney as a left field appointment, and Aberdeen fans as well, and thought no way he'll leave the Belgian side. So be interesting to see what's been said with the Hibs board. I know they're very ambitious, and there's been a lot of changes in all sort of departments behind the scenes at Hibs. So it's certainly an interesting one. And considering just last on Friday, managers like James McPake was being linked with the Hibs job, I think for Hibs fans, Maloney's an exciting one for them and something different as well.
You think about Hibs managers down the years, that they always seem to have this trend of giving young up and coming coaches or inexperienced managers the chance to almost learn their trade at the club. So this one maybe isn't as left field as we think. You know, from a Hibs standpoint, it might just be the perfect one for him as well.
Yeah, I think so. You've got to look at it like that. And it's not just because I think Shaun Maloney was a fantastic servant for the Scotland national team over the years, but I think you wouldn't be at Belgium and Roberto Martinez, who's managed in the Premier League, of course, and done a fantastic job at Wigan in the past. He wouldn't take someone like Maloney to a top international side like that if he didn't see potential in his coaching ability. And yeah, some might say, people in the comments might say, you make a good point there about Hibs taking maybe more inexperienced managers, but they've got to start somewhere. And I think Hibs is an established club. They've got good bases behind the scenes, and I'm sure he'll get the support and backing to be a success. If he is, we're speaking still hypothetically because we don't know if it's 100%, but it's certainly looking likely, is it?
And as you said earlier, that he's got a cup final around the corner as well. I mean, that would be some game if it was to be his first.
Oh yes, certainly. And it's one of these things I've been thinking that since Jack Ross departed Hibs, or even before that with the run of form, which has been not good enough for Hibs' standard, but it wouldn't actually surprise me if Hibs went on and won that cup against Celtic. We'll probably mention them later, but they're very depleted in their squad. And Hibs, new manager bounce, as they say. Someone like Maloney could come in and get the best out of Martin Boyle, because we've seen that in the semi-final, ripping Rangers apart. Some might say they caught them cold after Steven Gerrard leaving, but I stand by that Hibs have got on paper a really good squad, and it's just sometimes players like Joe Neal, Jake Doyle-Hayes, not consistent enough in the middle of the park, and same up top with the strikers. So I think Shaun Maloney, if he does come in, he's got a basis of a squad that he can work with and build on. And with January coming up, I'm sure they'll have targets they want to identify, because every manager wants to stamp their own authority on a squad, because at the moment, I guess it's still Jack Ross's squad.
And how key will the appointment, we think the appointment of Gary Caldwell be as his number 2?
Yeah, I think that is key, getting someone else that, well, Maloney's obviously played with Caldwell over years with Scotland and probably Celtic in the past as well. So you think in that instance that if they know each other well, it's two upcoming coaches in a way, and I think that's really exciting. I think it's key as well. I don't know if there's anyone else who'll bring to the coaching staff, but it's one that if I was a Hibs fan, sometimes the left field appointment, it's more exciting than I spoke on Thursday about Derek McInnes would have been a safe option. He'd probably get them. He never had Aberdeen outside the top 4. So I thought maybe they'd go for a safe option, maybe till the end of the season. But it's clear that they've identified their man and looks like they've got him. And Caldwell assisting him, I feel, is a very good prospect. And someone that you'll have, sometimes Hibs do leak silly goals I've seen in games that could dominate games, but then they'll lose a silly goal. And Caldwell being a defender himself, I'm sure he'll get that defence tightened up as well.
They've maybe looked at it in terms of the style of play that he maybe wants to bring to the club. You talk about McInnes maybe being a safe option. I think we all pretty know how a Derek McInnes side now plays, and how it's sort of maybe not as attack-minded as such. Maybe Shaun will be that attack-minded manager or coach, and that's maybe what the Hibs board are looking for.
Yeah, I think so. Having nowadays, as David mentioned in a group chat earlier, managers are judged on the style of play these days, and sometimes Jack Ross, Hibs fans won't mind me saying it because they'll know that it wasn't the prettiest football at times, and same as McInnes. And it's a lot of teams in Scottish football or managers that set up like that, hard to beat, counter, don't play that great football. But Shaun Maloney, we know the quality of players, De Bruyne, Hazard, etc. he's dealing with at Belgium. So he'll learn and you'll see how it works with them, and he can implement that with that Hibs side. And as I say, guys like Boyle, Nisbet, Dodge, he's got, if he wants to implement attacking style, it can work at this Hibs side. It's only, for me, a few tweaks he'd probably need to make, and he can start seeing them get up the table again, because sitting outside the top 6 with a few games till Christmas is not where Hibs want to be, especially after where they finished last season, which was one of the best league finishes in quite a while.
It's not just his coaching abilities as well, but you'd imagine that the contacts that he's built over the last few years, being with Belgium, may just be able to attract 1 or 2 players that maybe not necessarily have thought about coming to Scotland, but he might just be able to bring them in.
Yeah, and I think that's key as well. We always go on about wanting to market the game in the right way. And we've seen that with Celtic and Kyogo. They deliberately hashtag things that Celtic and the SPL to target that Japanese market. And then look at a manager like Maloney coming in. He might have, as you say, contacts in Belgium or down south, for his coaching badges. So it just brings that array of options, and players, as you say, under Jack Ross might have not signed. No disrespect to Ross, but Maloney, a highly regarded young coach coming in, you might just see some difference in players and something for Hibs fans to be excited about again. And going back to it, for a manager, if it was, and it did happen to be his first game, and it wasn't David Gray taking charge of the final, and it was Maloney, it would just be some achievement if you could just come in there and get them to win that trophy in his first match.
If you, it's a hypothetical question, obviously, but if you were Shaun Maloney and you were appointed on Friday, would you want to take charge on Sunday, or would you want to wait until Monday morning?
It's one of those, if you take it and you win, you're an instant hero and you remember it for the rest of your life. But if you don't, and like you look at Giovanni Van Bronckhorst not taking that semi-final, waiting in the stand, he couldn't really get blamed for the horror show, as Rangers fans would probably put it, because he wasn't in. So it worked in his favour because he wasn't there. But if you Shaun Maloney, it's hypothetical, because would you want to just get the ball rolling? But if he comes in on Friday, you're lucky if you've got any training sessions for that players and you're instantly in. Whereas David Gray, obviously, since I think it was last Wednesday or Thursday, Ross got dismissed. He's had a bit of time to work with these players and he'll know them a bit better. So it's one of those, could Maloney just be there and integrated, and he's still part of that group if they do win that trophy, but he's not quite in charge of the team. It's one of those that be interesting to see what does happen and how it does progress, because as we do see in football these days, these things can progress from a rumour or a talking point to finalised very quickly sometimes. So it'll just be interesting to see what does come of this.
From a sentimental point of view, I guess as a Hibs fan, you'd maybe want David Gray to lead the side out, having won the Scottish Cup and lifted it. So, it gives him the opportunity to lift the Scottish Cup as a player, but also win the League Cup as a manager as well, even if it is just as an interim basis.
Yeah, I think that would be some impact. I know Hibs on the weekend drew with St Mirren wasn't the greatest of games or result for David Gray in interim charge, but if he could, he was in charge for this final, and we all know a one-off game. Celtic, have been in pretty good form, but a one-off game, anything's possible. So David Gray, a win as player and manager in the last decade, he'd be absolutely ecstatic. So you just never know, and it's quite exciting to look forward to that match and see what does come of it.
And where does it leave him as well, though? Because obviously he's not going to get the job full time on a permanent basis. As we said, we think Shaun's going to come in. So where does it leave him after this weekend? Yeah,
you'd wonder, because obviously David Gray, you could put legend after his name by Hibs fans for scoring that goal to end that long-time trophy drought. So you'd think that there would always be a place for David Gray at the club. So I did see earlier that Steve Keane and David Gray ruled themselves out anyway of the job. I probably wouldn't have thought either was going to be two serious contenders. Maybe if Gray does or did win the cup before an appointment was made. But surely there would be a place for David Gray always at Hibs in some capacity in a coaching role. But I guess that depends on Maloney as well and who he wants to bring in. Would you see a lot of changes within the squad in January then, once Shaun takes over? Sometimes January is a hard one to make too much reinforcements. Usually summer is a better time to bed them in. I know there's a bit of a winter break this year, so I guess we'll have a bit of training to get new players in time. But I think it's one of these that you'll have areas that managers can look at a squad even before your manager. As he's been in discussions, you'll know the areas that are for improvement. Like I've spoke about Marciano, top goalkeeper. He left. Matt Macy's came in. Does it all right, but it's positions that they maybe want to strengthen up top as well. There might be bids in for the strikers. So it's one of these that I think there will be a few signings, but it's always hard for the manager to get too much quality reinforcements in January unless you're going to be splashing money. And we all know in Scottish football, there's not too much high transfer fees floating about, especially after the year and a half, 2 years of the coronavirus pandemic, which has hampered a lot of football clubs' finances as well. It's nearly 2 years. Can you believe it? We're still going on about it. Yeah, it's absolute madness. I was just to go off and a slight tangent. I just can't believe that in a few weeks' time that'll be 2 years since 2020 started. It's like, what the heck's happened? There was no fans in football grounds for a significant amount of time. So here's hoping we stick with football fans in grounds for the foreseeable.
Talking about fans and stands, then Shaun Maloney may well be in and around the ground tonight as Hibs play tonight. They're up against Dundee. It's a game where Hibs have now got no wins in the last 4. How do you see this one going, then?
I don't think it'll be a very. I think the game might lack a bit of quality. Both sides. Dundee back-to-back defeats, which is surprising because they'd had 2 wins in back-to-back victories, and now they've had back-to-back defeats. Dundee, so a bit of a hard one to predict. Dundee score goals though, like a lot from the end of a 3-2 defeat to County at the weekend, but they're always in these games where there's a bit of goals and they've got that goal threat. But we all know Hibs have got goals as well, and it just depends. The games at Easter Road, we all know. I think the last game at Easter Road a couple of weeks ago, the Hibs fans were slagged because there was a lot of empty seats in Easter Road. The fans voting with their feet, showing that they was unhappy with Jack Ross and the way the form's going. And it's one of these games that I think it'll be a tighter affair, and it's one of these that I couldn't see. I would probably go with a draw because Hibs, David Gray's coming. Maybe they've got the behind the scenes, the excitement through the players that someone like Maloney could be coming in. Do they want to play themselves in contention for a cup final place? You could maybe see a positive Hibs performance, but then it's one of these what Dundee side turns up, and I think I'd be going for a score draw in this game. What are you thinking for tonight's match?
I probably would have said a draw as well, but I think maybe Hibs might just sneak it. But I look at Saturday's result against St Mirren where they had the lead and then Shaughnessy gets a late-ish kind of equaliser, and that just kind of touches back on what you were saying about defensively not being able to see a game out.
Yeah, it's one of these things with Hibs this season. It reminds me of sometimes Aberdeen this season as well. They can dominate games and have all play and maybe got a goal up, but can't keep that door shut at the other end and end up losing a late goal. But to be fair, Hibs on Saturday did have all the shots, but St Mirren did boss a lot of possession as well in that game. And I think it was a draw probably was a fair result. It was another one that wasn't that great on the eye. If you was a neutral watching it or a Hibs fan, you'd want better. And we all know St Mirren are the draw specialists, so I would have put my money on that result. And back to the game tonight, it's one of these for me with Hibs. I know you could say police professional footballers should be able to play 2-3 games in a week, no bother, but you think this is Tuesday. I know the cup final's not till Sunday, but would you want to risk any injuries to certain players, etc.? Does that go through the mind of David Gray? It's one of those as well that so close to a cup final, whereas league form, you can kind of claw that back if you drop points in a sense, because we've all seen this season a couple of wins can put you right back into the European spots, whereas a cup final is a one-off game. You want to be winning that and getting your name on that silverware, in my opinion.
It's probably in the back of the minds of the players as well that that they've got the cup final round the corner. Do they go into those 50-50s the same way that they would? They maybe run the risk of getting picking up an injury that would see them out with the final.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's one of those you'd never like to question players' commitment, but it's one of those that always runs through your mind when it's games so close to a absolute massive game for Hibs, because we've lost finals in the past since that elusive Scottish Cup win, and it's one that they want to get the name on the League Cup, and they'll look at Celtic, and Celtic have got one of the best defensive records in the Scottish Premiership this season. They've playing some good football under Ange, but they'll look at Celtic and be like, they're lacking some key players like Yortam, possibly Kyogo, a lot of striking options, and it's one of those that Hibs, would they, and everyone wants to play in a cup final as well. At the end of the day, would you go question 50-50s tonight? You don't want to be out for a cup final, because in a footballer's career, you don't play in that many. cup final, so you treasure the ones you do. So you want to be playing in them. So it'll be certainly interesting. I'll maybe get a stream after that game tonight just to see the commitment of these players against Dundee.
And from a Dundee point of view, they lost on Saturday to Ross County, which cuts the gap. I mean, just a few weeks ago, I think we were speaking about the gap that Ross County were almost cut adrift at the bottom of the table. They're now just 2 points above Ross County, and they've played a game more as well. How significant was that result on Saturday?
Yeah, absolutely. You look for Ross County, that's 4 games unbeaten for them now, 2 wins and 2 draws. So it looks like Malky Mackay's finally getting the tune out of that team, because in a way, I'd watched Ross County at the start of the season and didn't think they was all that bad. Just something, get balls into the box, not take chances, ballooning them over the bar. But you could see potential in that side, and I think, as you say, it was possibly a false league position. They looked so cut adrift at one point, and perfect example of picking up a few results, getting like even in these tight games against Dundee, there was 2-1 down and ended up going back to win 3-2. It's just that, I guess, desire to win, and they've shown that. And now they're only 2 points behind Dundee. They're still in 11th, tied bottom with St Johnstone, but it's a huge win. It's that sort of games are a 6-pointer, really, because if you lose that, then the gap opens up more, then panic sets in. So I think it was a fantastic result for Ross County, really, on Saturday.
And what we're seeing from Dundee is the fact that they can score goals, but they've also got the ability to ship goals at the other end as well.
Yeah, I think I watched Dundee in pre-season against West Ham, and I thought, especially on, as you say, scoring goals on the break, and the players they've got in disposal and attack, they've got some fantastic players, like, you know, they've got Danny Mullen, they've got Luke McCowan, Killian Sheridan, Lee Griffiths, they've got some Jason Cummings, they've got players that can all score goals and have that moments of brilliance. But yeah, it just seems to be something lacking in defence. The scoring goals, but conceding a worrying amount of goals. And there's games that I've watched that Adam Lagston's has kept the score down, that the chances have been coming so much. So it's something that they have to really address, because I think they've got the worst goal difference by far in the league this season at -16 goal difference. So if you want to stay in the league, then Dundee will want that, because they've spent plenty of time in the Championship over the years. So they want to stay in the top flight. They don't want to be in a big relegation battle past New Year. So they'll have to, I think, for James McPake, we want to look at the transfer market, maybe a few loan signings in defence, maybe a holding midfielder, just to tighten that up, because sometimes it's the problem with teams at the bottom is not scoring enough goals, but they do score goals, but just it's one of those that conceding 33 goals this season in 17 games is quite frankly not good enough.
If Dundee do lose tonight, where does that sort of leave James McPake then? Because you touched on earlier on that he was being linked with the Hibs job, but at the same time they're struggling down at the bottom now. So where does that leave him?
Yeah, it's one of those. Depends what the Dundee board think, because for me, I think James McPake, he's one of these guys. Every time I've interviewed, he speaks well. He speaks like he knows what he's doing and be a good coach. But it's that thing different between a coach and a manager, and it seems that you don't want to be calling for any manager's head. But if they do lose tonight, Dundee won't want to be in that relegation battle. So it's one of those. You have to look at the next fixtures and be like, where can we pick up those points, and how can we get ourselves up the table? Because if we're seeing teams behind us, like Ross County, picking up points and going undefeated in 4 games, when are we going to go on that sort of run? There will be, I guess, buoyed by the fact that St Johnstone are now haven't won the last 4 games, which is a whole different topic of conversation, because after the season they had last season. But until I feel Dundee were a bottom of the league and maybe gone a few games without a win, I think James McPake still has enough credit in the bank at Dundee to stay there. And unless, I know, because a lot of people say James McPake probably one of the most, upcoming managers. Folk have good faith that he'll be a good manager one day, but it's tough at the top, as they say.
They might just be catching Hibs at the right time, as you said. That they've obviously got the cup final around the corner. They might have an eye on that, and they might just catch them at the right time.
Yeah, it's one of those that you look at Hibs, no wins in the last won the last 4 games, 2 defeats and 2 draws in the league. And as I say, Dundee been really inconsistent. So I'd be going for a 2-2 draw. I think Dundee, point for them at Easter Road, a good point, I guess. With a situation there and they'd want to win the game. But it's stopping the rot when you've been losing a couple of games. And it would have been a massive blow to the players and fans losing to Ross County, because you don't want to lose to a team that's behind, like, you're in a relegation battle with. So yeah, in looking at it, I think if I was a Dundee player, I'd want, if Hibs ain't got to go in that 50-50s, then you've got to be fitted right into it, because your game at the weekends maybe not as important. So go into that game, you can maybe get that 3 points, and it just shows 3 points would take them up to 8th, or well, tied 8th or 9th. So one win can really propel you up the Scottish Premiership. As you've seen, sometimes I look at the table, probably lead on to speaking about them next, look up the table to Aberdeen. There's a lot of talk of them, relegation battle, glass out, 3 wins on the bounce, up 1 point off a European spot. So even with Dundee, a couple of wins can change everything, and we're talking about McPake again in a really positive manner.
Dundee was in the news this morning for the wrong reasons, unfortunately, and alleged that their captain, Charlie Adam, has been charged with drink driving. It's just not, if it is the case, which also it's still alleged, but if it is the case, it's not reflecting on him very well, or indeed the club.
No, not at all. Especially, we all know some of the characters that are already at Dundee and the past histories. So yeah, it's one of those, especially Charlie Adam does a lot of media appearances on likes of BBC and PLZ Soccer, among others, and captain of his boyhood club. He's a role model to a lot of people, as I've seen. He's man, I think he's got 3 kids, so it's one of those, don't advocate drink driving for anyone, no matter who you are, but when you're a captain of a football club, you have that sense of responsibility, even more so in a way, because folk are looking up to you. So in a way, it definitely is got to tarnish his, I know you're innocent until proven guilty, but for him, it's not something that he'll certainly be regretting if it has happened, and it's one that Dundee and the hierarchy will be shaking their heads at, because, well, you've seen today in England with Arsenal stripping Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang of captaincy. Would something like that happen with Charlie Adam? I know he's had an illustrious career and he's probably doing them a favour being back at his boyhood club, but can't really get away with that and be promoted drink driving in any sense.
He's probably doing actually quite well this season with him. I know that they're sort of struggling at the bottom end, but his play sometimes has been of the Charlie Adam that we sort of knew from 5, 6, 7 years ago. And you just think it's and it could be another blow to McPake, who's trying to get his team back on winning ways, and this obviously is going to be a big blow.
Yeah, it's an unwanted distraction, really. When your team's down 2 points off the drop zone after 17 games, you don't want to be having this. You've already got enough things to worry about. How are you going to get your team up the league? Where's the winning formula? So for your club captain, who's as you say, I think he's had a really good season despite Dundee's league position. I've watched him several times springing passes around. Still got a good free kick on him that I remember from the Blackpool days. But it's one of those that resting the early hours of Monday morning in his hometown, it's one of those that it's just not acceptable. And it's one that James McPake would have been, head would have been in his hands, to be honest, when he's heard that story, I'm guessing.
I probably got the phone call late last night or this morning, which probably wasn't the best of phone calls he's ever had. There is another game on tonight. Finally, we're going to get the Scottish Cup replay between Darvel and Brechin. Played. It got a pitch inspection yesterday, so fingers crossed it does go ahead. The third time of asking. A good first game. I watched it on the TV. Should be another good game.
Yeah, I thought it was really exciting, the first game up at Glebe Park, and obviously Brechin are in a position in the league. They're now in the Highland League, and they probably would think they was in Championship 4 seasons ago or 5 seasons ago. So you can look at them, would they be favourites? But then Dundee, a very ambitious club as well. And as you said, there was nothing to separate them in the first leg, or first game at League Park. And going by what I watched in the first game, there's not got to be much to separate them in Dundee as well. But I think it's one of those that I'm just glad that it's finally happening, and it must be really exciting for both sets of supporters to know that both these clubs are not in the football pyramid as such, but yet they can get through with just this a win tonight. They can get through in the last 32 of the illustrious Scottish Cup and be playing against Arbroath. And yeah, Arbroath are doing really well this season in the Championship, but as you spoke about with cup finals, cup games, so one-off. So both these sides will have an extra incentive to just get through, and imagine the money for both that sides as well. Dundee or Beacon, if they get through the last 32 of the Scottish Cup, there's that extra financial boost as well, which could go a long way to helping these clubs survive in general.
You talk about the relief that of the fans that the game's actually going to go ahead. You think about the relief for the players as well, just being able to play that game. Obviously, it's been postponed 3 times now. Does that change their mindsets in terms of what they maybe would have had a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, I think it probably, like, when things are halted like that for a few times, you probably just want to you're so excited. You've had your first game, because every player, you've got to be confident going into these games. And I'm sure both sets of players and fans are confident. And it just depends, because it's probably been playing in their minds. I'm not sure if Dival's had a West of Scotland game since the weather, Stormbara, etc. might have halted that, but just one that I'm sure they'll just be glad to step out on that pitch and know that can go toe-to-toe, battle it out tonight, and know that whatever happens, one of them, hopefully the team, either Dundee or Beacon, they'll be hoping they're in the next round, and just great to see it go ahead. And I think that's the final fixture of that round, so finally just can have the full Scottish Cup last of the round of 32 draw without seeing this team or this team.
It's been a while. Would either of these sides look at the Arbroath game and think that's potentially a winnable tie? I know Arbroath are a championship side, but in terms of the teams that they could have come up against, would they see it's a winnable tie? Yeah,
in a way, for these sides, the players probably would want to play at Ibrox or Celtic Park or Tynecastle, Tawdry or something, so you get that experience of playing at a massive stadium. But in terms of you want to progress in the cup and get as far as possible, yeah, you just never know, because Viking were battling it out with Arbroath just a few seasons ago, and you just never know in a one-off game that Arbroath could have an off day. I think they'll have to, whatever team go through, they'll have to just be confident and think, well, you just never know. And you can look at it like this. At Gayfield, they'll still get a reasonable crowd, where both doing well, so they'll get half that gate receipt in the Scottish Cup as well. So every side get to the last 32. It's huge for a Highland League club or a West of Scotland League club to do so, because not many teams do get through to the last 32.
Of course, Arbroath against Brecon would be a derby as well, so I'm sure Brecon players and fans alike would be dying to get through and to play an old rival again.
Yeah, absolutely. We all love a derby match, and yeah, as you say, in Angus, I guess, derby there. So yeah, it's one that I'm not sure if it's televised like the first fixture, but it's one that I'll definitely keep an eye on the score this evening, because I think with me staying down in Ayrshire, I've heard a lot about Dundee and how ambitious they are as a football club and their plan, where they want to be, and they want to be playing against teams like Arbroath on a regular basis. So if they get through, it'll be a test to see where they're at, because you see similar teams who came through the pyramid, like Celtic, Hearts or Cove, you've seen they're ambitious clubs, and you see how far they're doing now, and just some of the scorelines they're getting out the leagues.
We'll move on. We've got, it's maybe a slightly off-topic subject, but you touched on it earlier on about Arsenal's captain Patrick Aubameyang getting his captaincy taken away from him. The reason why we maybe touch on it now is a lot of people are maybe looking at Scotland International Kieran Tierney as a possibility to step up and be the new Arsenal captain. Is that something you think would be a possibility?
Yeah, I think it would be definitely a possibility. You see that Arsenal fans love him since he's came in. He'll still go to training with a Tesco bag with his kit and everything. He hasn't changed in terms of the way he is, and I like that. And he's a leader, and you can see that with Kieran Tierney. He's a winner, and even when the chips were down, things weren't going well for Arsenal at times. I think it was Gary Lineker, Alan Shearer said that I'll give you in a relegation battle at one point. Tierney always stood up to me. Yeah, he's had his injuries, but he always stood up to me as someone that's always got to give 100% for the cause, and he's quite vocal on the pitch as well when he needs to be. And I think he'd be a right candidate. I don't know if he will be the one that does get it, but he'd certainly be a candidate. If I was an Arsenal fan, I'd be really pleased with Kieran Tierney, because you don't see that fight and passion sometimes, or the authenticity that Kieran Tierney shows in the English Premier League that often these days. So when you get players like that, you have to cherish them. And I think Arsenal, yeah, there'll be a lot of names out there that people might discuss that could get it now Aubameyang's been left, but there's no reason why Tierney can't be the one. What do you think? Do you think he'd be a good candidate?
He's probably one of the kind of guys that would be naturally a leader anyway, regardless if he's got the captain's armband or not. You just get a sense that off the field and on the field, he'd be the kind of guy that would galvanise the players around about him. He'd be the one that would try and get the best out of the players. You know, if the chips were down, as you said. So just giving him that captain's armband would just elevate him just that little bit more as well. And you never know. Sometimes that just elevates his game as well, much like what it did for Robertson getting the Scotland captaincy.
Yeah, and I think for Tierney, we always gone about, which one's better, Robson or Tierney, etc. But I think as a Scot in general and a Scotland fan, it'd be great to see Kieran Tierney, a Scotland player, captain of a traditional top 4 English club like Arsenal. So I'd certainly be rooting for Tierney. And from looking on Twitter this afternoon as well, it seems he's a very popular choice among Arsenal fans as well. But you look at previous Arsenal captains, Granit Xhaka had to have his captaincy removed, and now Aubameyang's had to have his captaincy removed. I'd like to hope if Tierney did get the captaincy that it would go all well for him.
Yeah, you just it'd be good to get him to get the captaincy, but I just think that regardless of who it eventually does get it, whether it's him or not, you just feel as though he'd be one of the leaders in the dressing room anyway. And it might just be, obviously, it'll be Michael Arteta's call, but I think, as you said, by the reaction of the Arsenal fans, I think he'd be a heavy favourite.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen a few Arsenal fans and English football fans on Twitter today say, he can't captain them from the injury table and all that. And I do see some people do always say, Tierney's injured a lot. But for me, I don't know if he's injured that much, but I think it's one of those that it's one of these players in the dressing room. You just want that natural leader and speaker. So looking at that Arsenal squad, maybe you've got Gabriel, or maybe you've got the boy Ramsdale, the goalkeeper, but not much standouts to me, because in the first place they wouldn't have a striker like seen Lacazette you mentioned. So for me, Tierney is a natural choice, and it'd be interesting to see how quickly, I think Arsenal's got a game tomorrow, who does take that captaincy and who does get appointed captaincy. And if it's Tierney, then fair play to him. I think it'd be merited.
Right, we've got the final 20 minutes. I don't know if 20 minutes is going to be enough for you, Robbie, but the Aberdeen AGM was yesterday. Obviously, a lot of points come out of it. Let's talk about the positive side of things. First of all, they announced that Jack McKenzie was given a contract extension. Obviously, that's good news for him and the club.
Yeah, I think that's welcome news for Aberdeen, tying up young prospects in a way. I know you could say Jack McKenzie, I think he's 21 now, but he's someone that just came through this season, was relatively unknown to Aberdeen fans, and now Stephen Glass has came in and he's proved his worth. He's putting some really good shifts at left back. I still think a raw talent, but to announce him on a new longer term contract is welcome news for Dons fans, and that's quite a few younger players that they have got tied down on long term deals. So even it's very shrewd business from the Dons, because sometimes I think in this instance, will he be there that long to the end of his contract? For me, I'm not sure. But when you get these players tied down, it means you got to get money and more transfer fees for them. So I think it's very good business from the Dons, and it was welcome news from that AGM, to be honest, because I think the AGM overall came at a good time for the Dons, because say it came 4 games ago or after Dave Coymack's explosive rant on Sports Sound, it might have been a complete different tone to the AGM, whereas three wins on the bounce for the first time this season, I think it was quite a productive and insightful AGM, and it was quite a positive tone, which, as I say, wouldn't have not happened among the Aberdeens, I guess, camp at all a few weeks ago.
There's still a few players that are still out of contract end of this season. Maybe some of the older the ones out of contract. So, do you see any more getting contracts at this stage, or would it be maybe towards the end of the season before we start seeing any of these guys? I think Constein maybe is one that's probably top of the list that would maybe get another contract.
Yeah, it's one of those. Constein, I've spoke a lot about Constein. I think he's one of these players that he's an amazing servant to the Dons, but at 34, he's just had a really, probably worst injury he's had in his career. What sort of player is he going to come back as? Spoke previously on this show about Dan McGregor at Hibs, only really there sentimental now, I'm not playing that much. I'd love Constantine to get a new contract, but how much football he would play now on, I'm unsure. You've got Michael Devlin, who got given a 6-month or half-season deal. His deal runs out in January. I thought Michael Devlin, when he first signed for the Dons, I think it was 2018, I thought Michael Devlin was fantastic. At times, got a Scotland call-up. He also, I felt at times, looked more assured on the ball than Scott McKenna, who obviously we all knew got his big money move to Nottingham Forest. And it's been a shame. It's one of these debacles that it quite rightly got brought up at the AGM. What has happened to Michael Devlin, because he's just been out the picture for, I think that's nearly 2 seasons now. And every time you hear he's maybe going to come back in training or full fitness, it's like, oh, he's another 6 or 7 weeks away, which they said last night. So certainly an interesting one. And at 28 years old, we've seen Tommy Hoban, who's playing for the Dons last season, announce early retirement. You'd be ashamed to see Michael Devlin have to do the same if that comes to the case. And you've got other players. Now McGinn only got a 1-year deal. It's not much been mentioned about him, but at 34, and McGinn and Hayes up in the summer, and it's sad because as a Dons fan, they're probably from my age group 2 of the best players I've seen in my time. I've got so many good memories of them, but players like that I wouldn't rush at the moment to tie them down their contract. It'd be more for me, I'd be looking at guys like Ryan Hedges, who I think's a real talent for the Dons. I'd be looking at trying to get him. He's obviously been some interest in England with Ryan Hedges from Championship clubs. Do you think it's merited? Sometimes Hedges can be frustrating, but with inconsistency. But then you could look at it. Would he really be at Aberdeen if he could play to his potential and consistent basis? Because when he's good, he's fantastic. But it's one of those, every team, you want an attacking player. You can play on the wing, you can play centre attacking mid. And he's one that at 26 years old, I'd be looking to tie on a 3-4 year contract if they can. And then it's one that Matty Kennedy, I think he was mentioned at the AGM last night as well. It's just a strange one with Matty Kennedy, because it's another one with Aberdeen signing. Don't know if you think about it, but it's another one with Derek McInnes signing a player after a really good game against Aberdeen. Because I remember watching him for St Johnstone and he ripped Aberdeen apart. And then the next transfer window, they signed him. And I haven't got the stats in front of me of his goals and assists for Aberdeen, but certainly not many. Like, he just flattered to see. Didn't look like a player that could beat a man or really do much. And I thought he was just frozen out. There's been talk that he had a back injury, but he hasn't trained with the first team at all, really, under Stephen Glass. And it's talk that in the AGM that he could be back to light training. But it's players like that, in my opinion, Aberdeen have got a bit of a top-heavy squad as it is. A lot of midfielders, not enough defenders and attackers. Players that, like Matty Kennedy, I'd probably just be trying to offload in January if they can and use the wages for something better. Same as guys like Matty Longstaff, I think spoke about him on another show recently. Signed from Newcastle. A lot of Newcastle supporters I've spoke to thought he'd stroll the league. I think he's had 16 appearances in the Premier League for Newcastle. But yet comes to Aberdeen and he's quite frankly been horrific for the Dons. He gave away a goal in one of the defeats, or gave away the ball for a goal and just looked out of place. So it's, for Stephen Glass, as we said, the AGM was pretty positive, but it's players like that, as I say, out of contract players and having inherited quite a big squad from Derek McInnes, it's wielding through that and getting your own players and realising what players are actually good enough to stand up and play for clubs the size of Aberdeen. And another topic from last night's AGM, and a lot of Aberdeen fans, if they're watching, will know about this Aberdeen's record signing in the last in my lifetime. Ronald Hernandez signed in January 2020, I think maybe 2019, for nearly £1 million and played about 5 games, shipped out on loan to Atlanta, which is Aberdeen's strategic partner. So a strange but predictable one, as such. A Venezuelan international was up against Lionel Messi in the summer, but there's talk of him, his preference is to stay in the States. But you look at it, I think he signed a 4 to 5 year contract when he signed for the Dons. So they've got a player like that basically tied up for so long that doesn't want to be there and doesn't want to come back. But you've supposedly spent nearly £1 million on. It's one of those that Aberdeen fans won't put up with just cutting the losses and something like that, when a Scottish club in general spending nearly £1 million is unheard of. So it's a strange debacle, really. And when it goes on, it's been going on for quite a while, with fans questioning what is going on with Ronald Hernandez. And I did find it quite funny that out of all the things Aberdeen fans could ask the board, I think the first question was about Ronald Hernandez last night.
One of the other topics, it's quite a heated subject, I think, as well. It's the stadium, the long overdue new stadium. It always seems to get delayed and delayed and delayed. They announced yesterday that it's going to be delayed even further, and it looks as though it's going to be a reduced capacity as well. 2 different points there. First point, the delay in the when the stadium is going to be completed or even started, and the reduced capacity. What's your thoughts on those 2?
Yeah, I'll start on the completion date of the stadium, at least 2025. I think Rob Wicks said, or Stephen Gunn. I think in that sense, it doesn't surprise me at all. With the pandemic, it's probably halted progress a bit. Is obviously they're rocking a hard place in a way, because they know the fans now. We thought, myself included, that Kingsford was maybe the only option, and that's why I thought was all behind that. But now, realising logistics and the sentimental side of things with where Pittodrie is, it seems like there is, and there was talk in the AGM that there still could be possibility of a partnership with Aberdeen City Council and building a stadium in the city. I think that's what I wouldn't mind if they held off 3 years to get that stadium if they did do something in cooperation with the council, because they'd also get help to fund that as well, rather than having to fund it all themselves. And yeah, onto the capacity, a £10 million difference between having a 16 or 17,000 stadium and a 20,000 stadium is baffling to me. But it certainly would be cosy having a 16,000 stadium. And I think, in a way, I really like Tynecastle, and I go on about it a lot. Some folk call me a closet Hearts fan because I really like going there, because I enjoy the atmosphere. You're uptight on the pitch, and I think that's about 17,500 capacity, and they sell it out most weeks. So look at Aberdeen. Yeah, look at Bayern Munich game, Copenhagen game, some Rangers and Celtic games over the years. There's been some fantastic sellout games, but you look, if they're building a stadium with seats that they're being used once a season, maybe it is a good option to build a smaller stadium. But then again, if they want to have 15,000 season tickets in 3 years, seat ticket holders, would you not want to make it bigger and have a business plan to grow your model? Because I look at it, Norwich and Newcastle as cities are not that much bigger than Aberdeen. You look at the capacity of their stadiums and the amount of fans they're attracting. There's no reason why Aberdeen, I personally feel, and I'm probably sounding quite passionate about this, but I personally feel that the club lost a generation of supporters because they didn't do enough to things in the community to get the youth of today involved, like when I was a kid. But I feel they've gradually been doing that over the last few years, especially since that League Cup win. But it's something that doesn't happen overnight. And with stadium, it's one of these, I don't even believe, probably, this is what I wanted to say earlier, do I believe Dave Coymack, he said 30% of season ticket holders don't turn up on any given match day? I think that number, maybe during COVID, I'd maybe say yes, because people have got that option of a season ticket pass online. You can watch Red TV through a season ticket. But from the people I know, I couldn't imagine 30%. I don't know Aberdeen's exact season ticket numbers, but say 9,500 or something. Like, I couldn't imagine 2,700, 3,000 people are not going every match day if they've paid tickets. Like, it's mad. But I do understand Dave Coyne, like he says, he wants that demand. If you have a smaller stadium, there's more demand and folk will pay for other folks seeing tickets, and the excitement might be more because it's more of a novelty because you can't go as often to these big games. So it's one of those that, what if you was an Aberdeen fan, Colin, what would you be thinking? What about that discussion on the new stadium?
If you're looking at it from an outside point of view, and you're getting 8,000, I think even 6,000 at one game earlier on, you're not going to fill that 22,000 seater, even if it is a new stadium. Sometimes you do get that uplift with a new stadium. It's new, it's everybody wants to go there. But consistently, I think Aberdeen's average attendances have always been sort of in around the sort of 10, 11, 12,000. Even during Fergie's days as well, I don't think it was ever full either. So I mean, you're always sort of fighting an uphill battle, trying to get people to come to Pretoria. I do think as well some of the ticket prices as well goes against them as well. I know they're paying over 30 quid for some of the games as well. From a business standpoint, I guess they're trying to make up some of the money, but there are ways and means of doing that. But I think probably Cormac's looking at it and going, well, yeah, we can save £10 million by reducing the capacity down to 16. But if they get to 16 or make it 15, whatever it is, and they can fill that then looks a lot better than having a 21 or 22,000 that's always half empty.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. And I think for me, you can always, as a fan, have that sentimental times of when they have had it full. But what's that, 1 in 100 games or something? It's not. And not to have a go at anyone in Aberdeen or City or Shire, but for the catchment area that Aberdeen have, I've seen a lot of people maybe disregard Dave Coymack's comments of 15,000 season ticket holders. It's very ambitious. I think they average about 9,500, 10,000 season ticket holders, but there's no reason why, if you get a good product on the park and this process that he goes on about with Stephen Glass, he did make a good comment about Stephen Glass. He still thinks he's the man and he can bring the strategy that he wants through. And if they can do that, it might take time, because we all know manager comes in like this season, especially a rookie manager as such, it's not going to happen overnight. So you just never know. I'd never like to disregard anything Dave Coymack says, because it's one of those that it just might happen. I think it'd be exciting, as you say, when it's something new and it's a novelty like a new stadium. In West Hill, yeah, when it was initially planned Kingsford, probably an inconvenience. Be something new, but it's still an inconvenience. Whereas we have it down the beach, you'd probably get people that you got to look at the end of the day. Aberdeen took 44,000 to a cup final against Inverness Cali. So these fans, whether or not all these fans were Aberdeen supporters, but they must have that potential base somewhere. So it's one of those that I'm sure behind the scenes, Rob Wicks, Dave Coymack, and the board will be discussing all this on a regular basis and try to see the best possibility, because quite frankly, Pittodrie, it's not a great place to go to anyway, with the stands all quite disjointed, cold next to the sea, and I wouldn't mind the stadium where it is, but you need to have it compact and keep the heat in going anyway. A cold winter football is not great at Pittodrie at the best of times.
I've always been the believer that they should have sort of rebuilt Pittodrie. I think that window's obviously gone long ago. When they built the Richard Donald stand, I think that was the opportunity they could have almost knocked it down and started again. Instead of spending the money on one stand, they could have built a decent 15,000-20,000 seater stadium then. Where they're talking about it, as you said, at the beach, and the possibility of doing something with the council. Is that a more ideal solution, do you think, to the one that had them outside the town?
Yeah, I think so. You can see, I personally would favour the beach option, but I can see both sides. Some people would say with now the bypass in Aberdeen, it goes right next to where Aberdeen's new training ground is and potential prospective new stadium. So you could say that in terms of transport links in and out for away supporters, and believe it or not, I'm not sure the exact percentage, but a high percentage of Aberdeen's home support comes from out with the city anyway. So you could see that, but for a convenience point of view and a fan's experience point of view, I'd much prefer the deal with the council. And the images released by the Evening Express showing what it could look like looked amazing. So I know images can look amazing and is never going to look the exact same, but one of those that, for me, the sentimental factor of walking down King Street or walking through town, going for some beers with your friends, and just that whole day out and football experience, I think it works a lot better at the beach. And I think with the plans, they're wanting to do at the Aberdeen beachfront as well, and there's so much potential there as well to make a whole fan day experience, have stuff at the beach ballroom, for example, or things like that. So I think Dave Coyman, I think he spoke about that on a previous Don's Live and maybe touched upon it at the AGM, but he wants to have that match day experience for Don's fans, and that lacks at Pittodrie because there's not enough really space or places to do that. So if you could get that, you'd maybe bring back some Laps fans, because let's face it, there probably is a lot of Laps fans, and COVID and cold weather and all that the decision where to go to Pittodrie on a Saturday or Wednesday night is probably made easier sometimes.
In the final 2 minutes that we've got, then Robbie, it seems that Stephen Glass is obviously going to get backed by Dave Cormack. Did he give any indication at the AGM of if there was going to be any funds available for him in January?
I didn't say too much about exact funds, but I know because he's so passionate about his man, and listeners to this will know, probably listen to what Dave Cormack said in the past, when a lot of fans were just calling for his head. The media probably turned the glass a bit. Guys like Kenny McIntyre having a bit of a go at. But I think you can see Cormack, he doesn't want to see his man fail. So depends where Aberdeen are, because you look at it now, Dundee United have had so much plaudits this season, and Aberdeen are now 1 point, I think, behind them, and could end up in fourth place when a win next up. I know they haven't got a game this weekend, but beat Hibs next midweek, Aberdeen could end up in a European spot. So it just shows how your fortunes can turn so quickly. And if Aberdeen want to show ambition and get, because it's probably been turbulent for me as a Dons fan, going from Glass's Showtime Dons, we got to split the old firm this season, to ending up in the bottom six at 1 point. But it's one of these that, from what I've seen, I think Dave Cormack, well, they've got a big squad as it is, so if they can wield out some of the deadwood, I think he will be eyeing up some quality acquisitions in January, and it's something that I can imagine we will be seeing.
Well, Robbie, it's been fascinating to listen to you once again. A pleasure having your company on tonight.
Yeah, it's been fantastic chatting all things football. I hope all the people watching has enjoyed our chatting, what we've had to say, from chatting about Hibs to chatting about Charlie Adam and chatting about the Dons.
And you never know, next time we'll back on, it might be another AGM.
I know it seems to be a regular theme at the moment with AGMs, but enjoying it, mate, and thanks again for hosting.
Thank you very much for being on with me, and thank you all for watching and listening wherever you are, whatever you're doing this midweek, whatever games you're going to enjoy, and stay safe out there. Thanks again. Cheers.
Thank you.